In the early months of 1914, Europe stood at a pinnacle of civilization, a continent of grand empires, thriving industrial cities, and unprecedented technological progress. Beneath the surface of this gilded age, however, a complex web of secret alliances and rising nationalism was creating a volatile environment ready to ignite. The great powers were divided into two camps: the Triple Entente of Britain, France, and Russia, and the Triple Alliance of Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. June 28, 1914, in the city of Sarajevo, a single event would shatter the peace of the world and set the machinery of war in motion. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne by a young Serbian nationalist, triggered a rapid and uncontrollable diplomatic crisis. Within weeks, the July crisis escalated as ultimatums were issued and mobilization orders were signed across the capitals of Europe. As August arrived, the declaration of war was met with a strange mix of somber duty and naive patriotic fervor in cities like London and Berlin. Germany's invasion of neutral Belgium brought Great Britain into the conflict, turning a regional dispute into a global catastrophe. By the winter of 1914, the war of movement had ground to a halt. A line of trenches stretched from the Swiss border to the North Sea. Life in the trenches was a grueling cycle of mud, rain, and constant vigilance against an enemy only a few hundred yards away. In the flickering light of candles, men wrote letters home, their words bridging the gap between the horror of the front and the lives they left behind. On Christmas Eve 1914, an extraordinary event occurred. Carols drifted across no man's land, and a spontaneous truce took hold along sections of the front. Soldiers emerged from their positions to meet, exchange gifts, and even play football in the very space where they had been fighting. But the peace was fleeting. 1915 and 1916 saw the introduction of terrifying new technologies that redefined the lethality of modern warfare. Poison gas was unleashed for the first time, a silent and ghostly killer that forced soldiers into claustrophobic and terrifying masks. In the skies above, the first dogfights began. Brave pilots took to the air in fragile biplanes, engaging in a new kind of chivalric combat. The battles of Verdun and the Somme became symbols of the war's immense scale, resulting in millions of casualties for mere miles of ground. The conflict reached far beyond Europe. Millions of colonial troops from India, Africa, and Australia joined the struggle, making it a truly global war. At home, the war effort transformed society. Women entered the workforce in unprecedented numbers, filling roles in munitions factories and hospitals. 1917 brought seismic shifts. In Russia, the pressure of war led to revolution, the fall of the Tsar, and Russia's eventual exit from the conflict. That same year, the United States entered the war, bringing fresh troops and immense industrial resources to the exhausted Allied forces. The final German offensive of 1918 failed, and as the Allied counter-offensive broke the German lines, the Central Powers began to collapse. At the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, the guns finally fell silent. The armistice was signed, and the war was over. While crowds celebrated in London and Paris, the world that emerged from the conflict was forever changed. Empires had fallen, and new nations were born. The Treaty of Versailles sought to establish a new order, but the scars of the war to end all wars would haunt the century to come. We remember the 16 million who lost their lives, a generation lost to a conflict that reshaped the map and the soul of the modern world.